Hey, David Brewster here with the 3 for All, and this is 3 Tommy Bolin Licks from 1974, and I've had a lot of requests for Tommy Bolin, which once again was a big shock, because when I saw those rolling in, I thought, wow, and I was impressed, because Tommy is kind of an obscure, not well-known, not a household name type of guitarist, but there's a lot of people apparently, that are holding on to his legacy and his music. And if you know Tommy, then you already know how influential and important he is as a rock, guitarist. But he also had, blues elements, played slide, influenced a whole bunch of players. Jeff Beck, Van Halen, Warren Haynes, Joe Bonamassa, Marcus King. There's a whole bunch of people that love Tommy Bolin. And you have to keep in mind, his career only spanned from 1969 to 1976. So he had this little window of time, much like Jimi Hendrix or Stevie Ray Vaughan, Randy Rhoads, and so many of the tragedies, in rock. But with Tommy, he replaced Joe Walsh in the James Gang. He also replaced Ritchie Blackmore in Deep Purple. And I think that was kind of a wrinkle in his career because right out of the gate, he had fans that were kind of upset and angry that he was replacing Joe Walsh and/or, Ritchie Blackmore. But he did release, some solo albums. He had some studio and session appearances, with Billy Cobham and some others. And definitely Tommy Bolin's just a guitar legend. My favorite area of his career and that spark of influence that he had was in the mid 70s when he cut albums with Billy Cobham, also Alphonse Mousson, and he was kind of flirting with fusion. Now, Tommy Bolin, admittedly, he admitted this himself. He didn't know how to read music. He didn't know how to read charts. He didn't understand music theory. He was an ear feel player, but he was really good. And he was really good. He had a great ear and great feel. So when Billy Cobham called him and was like, I want you on my album, he was scared to death. It's Billy Cobham, Jan Hammer, and all these, jazz, prolific musicians, educated, studied, schooled, knowledgeable. And Tommy had all this like street smarts, but that gave that album, Spectrum, this exciting, different feel. It wasn't a schooled, jazz musician playing guitar. It was this gritty blues rock guitarist that was pulling all that just right out of his butt, where it's like, wow. He really didn't know what he was doing, but he did it. All right, so before we hit the licks, I'm going to play a couple clips and talk about his use of effects and tone and experimentation because Tommy really was a pioneer, a very important pioneer. He's almost forgotten, but there's enough people, like the viewers that have requested and myself and some other players out there, that his legacy is still alive. But it seems like each year, each decade, it's getting a little more faded, because people just don't remember him because he didn't really have a hit. He did work with two very popular bands, but if his career had continued, a lot of people speculate that he would have just blown wide open. He would have been like the next Clapton or the next Hendrix or whatever, but he didn't have a chance. But anyway, his use of effects and experimentation with tone was very influential. And I know he kind of probably picked up that ball, from listening to Jimi Hendrix and Clapton and people like that. But definitely Eddie Van Halen, I think, is, kind of a bigger, Tommy Bolin fan than he ever fully admitted. I think he's admitted that he likes Tommy Bolin, or he's listened to him, or he was inspired by. But when you start really listening to Tommy Bolin and some of the stuff, and you think, okay, this is 4 to 5 years before that first Van Halen album, it almost does seem like Eddie was taking notes, like, okay, he's using delay and effects and these different things. So here's a clip of Tommy Bolin in 1969 with Zephyr. It's black and white, it's bad footage, but you can hear it and you can see it a little bit. But he's using delay and he's basically rhythmically smacking the strings, and then he's playing a lead lick and then starts smacking the strings. And in some ways it reminded me of like some of the stuff that you see people do with loop pedals, like solo acoustic guitarists beating on their guitar, for a rhythm. But here he was kind of playing rhythm and lead, with that delay effect in 1969. So that's really cool. And here's a clip from 74, which is where these licks came from. And he's just experimenting once again. There's this weird kind of outer space sci-fi kind of effect. And you have to think in 1974, that was pretty progressive for him to be kind of playing around with these, futuristic and spaceship, kind of guitar effects. But the licks came from this live footage from 1974. It was a TV appearance with the James Gang. And, Tommy did work with the James Gang briefly and Deep Purple briefly. And he also had time to, release solo albums and cut, fusion albums, and session appearances and stuff. So even though his career was very short, he did, he hit the ground running. He was very prolific. And even though that's just a few years of activity, he really did pump out a lot of music in a short amount of time. The first lick is this gritty F sharp minor pentatonic kind of blues rock lick, and it's something like this. And this is played during Walk Away, when James Gang performed that song during this appearance, and he kind of throws out his own version of Joe Walsh's opening phrase there. So that's Tommy's, interpretation. So right there, kind of a standard, opening phrase. And then it's the way he comes down. It's pretty much just straight F sharp minor pentatonic, but it has this real musical, kind of bouncy phrase. I think 1974, that lick probably, influenced tons of players. That lick and that type of phrasing, which is what Tommy Bolin definitely was known for. These kind of quick and melodic and quirky, blues rock phrases, like that one. But here's the footage from '74 with Tommy Bolin playing that. The next lick is this kind of slip and slide A minor 9 based idea, and it's based around A minor, or A minor 7, but he's targeting the 9th, which is that B note, in the key of A minor. So he's basically grabbing, B here, and he also grabs it down on the G string right there too, so he's targeting that 9th. So think, A minor 9, with this idea. Something like that. And I like how he slides in and out of that B, C, B, the first time, and then the second time he actually picks it. So he plays the same phrase, but, he basically performs it two different ways. And that's the thing about Tommy's style, is the phrasing, the way he played the licks and phrases. One more time, a little bit slower. And you can see we're doing that little shift slide like I was talking about. And then right there is where you slide down to that lower B note. And then right there, grab this A, and then you're going to shift slide up the G. Here's the footage from Tommy in 1974 playing that lick. The next lick is this kind of jazzy fusion-based idea, and it's based around D major 13. He's kind of flirting with this arpeggio right here. Something like this. And I love how he's sliding from the major 7th into the root right there. And then he's going to grab this B, which in the key of D major, that would be the 6th or the 13th. And he's going to grab this B and he bends it up a whole step. And he's targeting C sharp, which in the key of D, that's the major 7th. But it does sit well in this lick. That kind of helps it have that jazzy kind of flavor. And then right here, grab the 3rd, which is this F sharp, bend and release, grab that E note, go back to the F sharp, and then end on G sharp, which technically in the key of D, that's the 11th, or the 4th right there. It's one of Jeff Beck's favorite notes to land on, at like the end of a phrase. And there's Tommy doing it right there. And as far as the influence that Tommy had on Jeff, I mean, Jeff technically was out, you know, with the Yardbirds and everything. He appeared on the scene long before Tommy Bolin. But Tommy Bolin did influence Jeff Beck to dive into albums like Blow by Blow and, you know, his kind of fusion period during the 70s. And a big part of the reason why Jeff Beck shifted gears and started going toward that funkier, you know, sound, started hanging out with Stevie Wonder and people like that. A lot of that had to do with Tommy Bolin. That was a direct lightning bolt into Jeff Beck's, you know, world or his music. Here's a bonus lick from this footage, and this is a mix and match pentatonic idea because he starts in A major pentatonic and then he finishes in A minor, but then he's also kind of flirting with like a blues hybrid, or he's, you know, adding the major third in there too. So it's really cool the way he's blurring between major pentatonic, minor pentatonic, and then also grabbing, you know, some notes from the hybrid pentatonic scale too. But something like this. And it has this really, you know, kind of a cheery opening, I guess. And that's all, you know, A major pentatonic technically. And then right there, shift into the box. Just kind of, you know, separate that little double stop and then bend that G note up to A there on the B string. And then right here, it's a weird little phrase, but he lands on that C sharp, you know, right on the downbeat. And I mean the last time he plays that C sharp, not the first time. He kind of snuck it in earlier, so slowly that phrase, that's really different. So the whole thing. And here's the footage from '74. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of 3 for All with 3 Tommy Bolin Licks from 1974, and I was really shocked and happy to see the requests for Tommy. And I have received a lot of requests for a lot of different guitarists and bands and specific topics and different things. And I'm going to hit a lot of different things. And I am going to try, I'm going to attempt to create a lot of the requests I've received. Leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.